breast and arms of silver, Medo-Persia, but then another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. In Daniel chapter 8, we read of another vision God gave to Daniel. In Daniel chapter 8, verses 1 to 4 and 20, Daniel chapter 8, verses 1 to 4 and 20, we read of this vision. The Bible says, in the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, so which means that Babylon, at the time of this dream, the Babylon Empire was still ruling the world, because Belshazzar was the king of Babylon. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me, Daniel, after that which appeared to me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw, I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up mine eyes and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram which had 2 horns, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will, and became great. Verse 20, the angel that was with Daniel said to him, the ram that thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. So here the interpretation of the ram was given to Daniel, saying that the ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia. So Daniel now understood that the kingdom which represented the chest and arms of silver in Nebuchadnezzar's dream is the same kingdom represented by the ram with the 2 unequal horns. One horn was higher because Medo-Persia was a dual government empire. There were Medes and Persian. It was a coalition of 2 nations. The Medes were weaker, so they were represented by the smaller horn. The Persians were stronger, so they were represented by the higher horn. Remember, Darius had to call Cyrus to help him to defeat Babylon, because Medes were weaker. And so the Medo-Persian Empire was represented in this new dream by a ram with 2 horns. And the Bible says the ram pushed in several directions, in northward and southward and so on, which represented the conquest of the Medo-Persian Empire. The earthly powers could not stand before the Medo-Persian Empire. Now, Jeremiah had prophesied in Jeremiah 29:10, for thus said the Lord, that after 70 years be accomplished at Babylon, I will visit you, that is, his Jewish people, and perform my good word to you in causing you to return to this place, that is, to Jerusalem. Now, this is a cylinder of Cyrus, or Cyrus's cylinder, and on it you see cuneiform writing, in which this is how they wrote in those days. They would preserve their record on these clay rolls, right? And on that, when this cylinder was translated, it was found to be Cyrus's boasting of all that he did and all that how he conquered Babylon and so on. And this is what a section of what was written: from Babylon here to as far as the region of Gutium, the sacred centers on the other side of the Tigris, whose sanctuaries had been abandoned for a long time, I returned the images of the gods who resided there. So Babylon had broken down other temples besides the Jerusalem temple, but he now returned the images to those temples. And he said, who had resided there in Babylon, to their places, and I let them dwell in eternal abodes. I gathered all their inhabitants and returned to them their dwellings. So here Cyrus is saying, all the people who were captive in Babylon, when I took over, I sent them back to where they were. And this is what God said would happen. He said, I will perform my good word to you in causing you to return. So Cyrus again, he would have took all the glory, not knowing that it was all in God's plan. Let's move on. So after the Medo-Persians, we see another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule all over the world. And remember, we're in Daniel chapter 8 still, and we're seeing that this ram with the two horns is the Medo-Persian kingdom. And in verse 5, we see another beast come upon the scene. In verse 5, we read, "And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground, and the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had the two horns, and which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler or fury against him, and smote the ram, and brake his two horns, and there was no power in the ram to stand before him. But he cast him to the ground, and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Then the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and for it came up four notable ones towards the four winds of heaven." And verse 21 and 22 says, "And the rough goat is the king of Greece, and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. Now that being broken, whereas four stood up for it, four kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power." So now in vision, a raging battle Daniel sees. He sees Medo-Persia as the ram, and then he sees the kingdom of Greece, or the Macedonian Empire, attack the Medo-Persian Empire and totally destroy it. And the Bible says that the horn that was, the big horn that was on the head of the goat, represented the first king, and the rough goat is the king of Greece here. The great horn between his eyes is the first king. And then it says that great horn would be broken, and four horns would come up instead of it, which are four kingdoms which shall come out of the Grecian or Macedonian kingdoms. So therefore, in Daniel's vision, he learned that the kingdom after Medo-Persia would be the Grecian kingdom or the Macedonian kingdom. Daniel is seeing in vision the year 331 BC. 200 years into the future, Daniel is seeing here, when the Greeks under Alexander the Great, though small in number compared to the Persians, began a series of successful battles. They captured territory after territory after territory until Alexander became the absolute lord of the Persian Empire. And so the mighty Medo-Persian kingdom ended, and a new kingdom began under this man, Alexander the Great. And this is an actual bust that was dug up of him. According to the Wikipedia encyclopedia, during 332 to 331 BC, Alexander was welcomed as liberator in Persian-occupied Egypt, and was pronounced the son of Zeus by who? Egyptian priest of the deity Amun at the oracle of Siwe Oasis in the Libyan desert. Now remember, Egypt had been a province or under the control of Medo-Persia, and so Egypt got their religion from Medo-Persia, who got their religion from Babylon. So now here is Alexander now. Henceforth, Alexander often referred to Zeus Ammon as his true father, and subsequent currency depicted him adorned with ram's horns as a symbol of his divinity. So Alexander thought he was a god on earth. That's what the word divinity means. And notice that the Persian-occupied Egypt pronounced Alexander son of the Zeus god. So we have to understand that the ram in Daniel's vision was a symbol of Medo-Persia. Alexander wore ram horns as a symbol of his divinity, which means he adopted the Medo-Persian religion. So we notice a similarity, that the religion of Babylon is passing down through these successive empires. Now Alexander was great in his conquest, but he was foolish in his conduct. After he had conquered Medo-Persia, he had no more opposition basically. He turned his appetite for conquest upon his own subjects. And he often murdered his own friends. He had these great parties, he got drunk. At one time, 20 of his friends died of a drunken binge, and Alexander himself died after